All right, we'll say good morning. Let's begin. We have a lot to do today. Today's daf is Pei Dalet 84, and we are picking up on the last line of Pei Gimel Amadeus. Adkan lo pligi ela b'chadash. So also remember again, the Gemara quoted the Machlokas. The Mishnah said that halacha lemaisa omer shtei halechem can only come from chadash. We saw the opinion ultimately others. We saw other opinions who held, or another brisa which held that halacha lemaisa, the omer as well as the shtei halechem could even come from what? Could even come from yashan. Could even come from yashan. So I'll say, interestingly enough, when we saw again, even that opinion says that it come from yashan holds lechatchila. Ideally, it should come from chadash. So the Gemara says adkan lo pligi ela b'chadash. So the only machlokes so far is regarding whether or not omer and shtei halechem must come from chadash, or is it just lechatchila? Top of Pei Dalet aval be'eretz lo pligi de omer ushtei halechem me'eretz in mechutz la'aretz. Rabbi will say everyone will agree that what? That both the karban omer as well as the shtei halechem has to come from produce grown in Eretz Yisrael and not produce grown in chutz la'aretz. Kiman, Rabbi will say, whose opinion does this reflect? Delo ki haytano. Rabbi will say it is not like the following tano. The Sanya Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda omer ba mechutz la'aretz. Wow. So Rabbi Yossi holds that the omer could come even from produce grown in chutz la'aretz. Okay? What about the fact umani makayem ki savo el haaretz? I will say, what do you do with the pasuk that says ki savo el haaretz when you come to the land uktzartem es ketzira ve'avesim omer? I will say the pasuk literally seems to link what? Not seems to link, links karban omer with coming into Eretz Yisrael. So what's the pshat? Shalom nischayvu ba'omer kodem shenichnesu la'aretz. So we'll say what that pasuk means is the obligation for karban omer was only triggered once we entered into the land. But the produce need not be brought to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, the obligation only begins when we enter into Eretz Yisrael. But once you enter into Eretz Yisrael, there's an obligation of Omer. The halacha is that you can bring the produce from anywhere you want. From Chutz La'aretz, from Eretz Yisrael. Good. V'kasav. Rabbi say, by the way, and this applies both to Omer and Shtei Halechem. And furthermore, he holds V'kasavar Chadash B'chutza La'aretz De'oraisi. If you remember again, we made reference to this machlokes earlier, and this particular Tana holds that Chadash applies midda araisa in Chutz La'aretz, which Rabbi said in and of itself is a dramatic statement that Chadash does not only apply in Eretz, but applies in Chutz La'aretz as well, which Rabbi means that halacha lemaisa you would not be permitted to eat of new crop of grain until after the time that the Omer is brought, or until after the second day of Pesach in the absence of the Beis HaMikdash, even in Chutz La'aretz. Dichsiv, where does he get this from? Mimosh vosechem, because the pasuk by Chadash says, "Velechem v'kali v'karmel lo sochlu adetzem hayom hazeh ada v'yachem es karban elokechem chukas olam b'dorosechem chukas olam lidorosechem v'chol moshvosechem." The pasuk says that the obligation of the halachos of Chadash apply where? V'chol moshvosechem. So what does v'chol moshvosechem mean? Anywhere you live. To which the Gemara is dashing now. What does that mean? Anywhere you live? Anywhere you live means anywhere you live, even in Chutz La'aretz. Kol makom sha'atem yoshvim mashma. The halacha is wherever you live, so there is a din of Chadash. Ay v'chisavo zman biyahi. And ultimately, and I will say, when the pasuk links these mitzvos of Chadash, of Omer, to entry into Eretz Yisrael, what that means is what? It's the entry that triggers the initiation of the obligation. But in no way is it coming to tether the mitzvah to Eretz Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael only. And ultimately, and I will say, since Midaraisa applies in Chutz La'aretz, therefore what? You could even offer up produce from Chutz La'aretz as well. So I will say, this is actually pretty amazing. So now, what we have is a multi-layered machlokes. So we'll say, so again, remember, the Mishnah seems to indicate, the Mishnah indicates to us that, first of all, Omer that Omer Shtei Halechem could only come from Chadash and could only come from produce grown in Eretz Yisrael. At first, we began with another opinion that said, oh, by the way, Omer and Shtei Halechem could also come from Yashan, but that brisa will agree that it still has to come from Eretz Yisrael produce. Now I will say a third approach that says that no, halacha lemaisa, Omer and Shtei Halechem could even come from produce outside of Eretz Yisrael. Why Rabbi say now? What's the logic behind that? Because the psukim which tethered these karbanos ultimately to Eretz Yisrael are only telling me that halacha l'maisa, the obligation is when you go into Eretz Yisrael, but the produce caving, but they apply even outside of Eretz Yisrael. So, for example, if the prohibition of Yashan Chadash is going to apply outside of Eretz Yisrael, that teaches me that what? That the produce could come from outside of Eretz Yisrael as well. So, three-way machlokes. Says the Gemara, Tanan Hasam, Shomrei Svichim B'Shvias, Notlin Schar Mitrumas Halishka. A very interesting case. Now, Svich and Rabosai refer to things that grow by themselves during the Shemitah year. So you have an interesting case that comes up over here. During the Shemitah year, you still have to bring the Karban HaOmer. What's the problem? So you have to bring it from barley. The problem is the status of all crops during the Shemitah year is hefker. So what we have to be concerned about, Rabbi say, we need barley for the Karban HaOmer. What happens if the Aniyim come along and they're not the Aniyim? Remember, it's not the poor. Anyone can come along and takes all of the barley, nothing left. So what Beis Din did was they hired watchmen. To guard a certain area of barley that it should be available for the Karban HaOmer. V'notlin scharan mitrumas halishka. And Rabbi say they were actually paid from temple funds. So they actually were on the Beis Hamikdash payroll, and they were paid from the half shekel collections, trumas halishka. So listen to this. So Rami Bar Chama Rav Chisda. So Rami Bar Chama said to Rav Chisda the following: Tanan, Shomrei Svichim b'Shvias notlin scharan mitrumas halishka. So remember again, the watchmen over the barley during the Shemitah year would go ahead and get their salary from the Trumas Halishka or Minhu and raise the kasha. So I'll say, so what you're telling me now is that, remember, on the Shemitah year, where did the Karban HaOmer come from? Where did it come from? It came from Shemitah produce. So you're say we're not really. This is not like a financial discussion. How we're going to analyze where the monies came from, right? This is a discussion. What I understand from this brisa is that halacha lemaisa, Shemitah on a Shemitah year, the Karban HaOmer was brought from Shemitah produce. Here is the problem. Or minu la'achla v'lo l'sreifa. I will say the pasuk when it teaches us about the produce of the Shemitah year says it's yours. La'achla, to eat it. But the halacha is, Rabbi say, remember again, you know this if you've ever been in Eretz Yisrael during a Shemitah year, right? So again, eating items with Kiddush HaShviyas is not a pashut thing, right? You have to be careful with your leftovers. So therefore, again, the halacha is, you're allowed to eat it, but halacha l'maisa, you're not permitted to destroy it. So how can you offer us, good kasha by the way, how can you offer up Omer barley on the Mizbeach when you are effectively destroying Shemitah produce? So we'll say, this is an amazing answer. The Gemara says, all right, Amrle, Rachmana Amrle Chaladorosechem, Va'at Amriti Batal. So essentially, I will say, interestingly enough, he says, what kind of question is that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to do it, so we do it. God makes the laws. So the same God who says that you can't burn Shemitah produce, also tells us that what? That you have to bring the Karban HaOmer. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying here, you can burn the Omer produce. So so what's mean? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us halachos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us mitzvos. The good thing about God is that you get to make the rules. So he said that halacha l'maisa, again, you can't burn Shemitah produce, but he did say that halacha l'maisa, you can and are obligated to go ahead and offer up the Omer. Good. Amrlei umika amina anati batal. So we'll say, interestingly enough, Rabbi Bar Chama says to Rav Chisda, Rabbi, do you think I was suggesting that we shouldn't bring the Karban HaOmer on the Shemitah year? That's not what I was suggesting. What I was suggesting is, Leisim the Ishtakid. Why don't you go ahead and set aside some barley from last year? In other words, we'll say, the good thing about the Jewish calendar is you always know what's coming. There's no surprise. There's a Purim this year? I had no idea. Mamish, where did this come from? Second day Rosh Hashanah? Whoever does such a thing. It's pretty predictable, I will say. Pretty predictable. So what Rabbi Macham is saying is, why don't you just, the Shemitah year is coming, there's a potential issue of Shemitah produce, why don't you just go ahead and halacha l'maisa set aside some barley from last year's crop, from your sixth crop, and go ahead and use that to go ahead and offer up the Omer. To which the Gemara says, so the problem is, Ba'ina Carmel Veleka. Because we'll say the pasuk says ultimately again, the Karban Omer must be Carmel. Carmel, what's Carmel? We'll say soft and moist. Soft and moist. So the idea being it has to be part of the New Year's fresh crop. So the Gemara says, veleka. And if you're using last year's crop, it's not going to be like that. Velesi mi karmel de ishtakit. So this is actually an interesting suggestion. Why don't you bring last year's fresh crop? What was last year's fresh crop? So why don't you harvest the barley last year in year number 6 when it's fresh, so that when it was harvested it had the din of being fresh, and maybe again, as long as when it was harvested it had the din of being fresh, that's enough to satisfy the Carmel obligation even a year later. To which the Gemara says, Amar Kra, Carmel Takriv. So we'll say the pasuk juxtaposes, it says Carmel, you have to offer it Carmel. Ba'ina Carmel b'shas hakrava veleka. Rabbi say you're required to be Carmel at the time that it's offered, so it has to be soft, it has to be moist, it has to be fresh at the time that it's offered. And obviously, if the crop is a year old, it's not going to satisfy that criteria. So therefore, Rabbi say, so therefore the simple answer is, you're right, Einachinami, I am not permitted to go ahead and burn or destroy Shemitah produce in any way, except when I'm allowed to. When am I allowed to? Well, one of the examples is, and Rose, by the way, this would apply in other cases of Menachos as well, over the course of the Shemitah year. Obviously, for karbanos, for sacrificial service, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me I'm allowed to do it, then of course I'm permitted to do so. Itmar, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Carmel Takriv. So we'll listen to this. Rabbi Yochanan, so we'll say, there's going to be here a machlokis about drushes, but an agreement about the bottom line. So Rabbi Yochanan holds Carmel Takriv. So we'll say, what is Carmel Takriv? Carmel Takriv teaches me that the barley must be moist and soft, fresh, at the time that it is offered. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Reishis Ketzircha. Rabbi Elazar learns out about the same halacha, namely, again, that the reason you can't bring last year's barley for this year's carbon is because it says Reishis Ketzircha. Reishis Ketzircha v'lo sof Ketzircha. But it has to be from the beginning of the year's harvest and not the end of the harvest, or for that matter, again, last year's harvest. So we'll say, take a look at Rashi. Rashi in the Kisvei Yad for just a moment. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Hainu tamadin mavin midishtakid dechsev reishes ketzircha b'shas havas haschalas aktzira osa tevua ba mimena. So we'll say, what's interesting to point out over here is the following. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar are agreeing. What are they agreeing about? That halacha l'maisa, you have to bring fresh barley from this year for the Karban HaOmer. What are they disagreeing about? The Bukhar, the source for this. Rabbi Yochanan is saying Carmel Takriv. Rabbi Elazar is saying Reishis Ketzircha. So here we go. So Mosiv Rabba Vin Takriv Minchas Bikurim. So what's when the pasuk says, if you will bring your Minchas Bikurim, what's Minchas Bikurim? The Minchas Omer Kasav and Darab. The Torah is referring to the Minchas Omer. So the Gemara says Mehechan Hiba. Where does the Karban Omer come from? Minchas Saorim comes from barley. Ata Omer Minchas Saorim or Eino Ela Minachitin. You're saying that ultimately, again, it comes from barley, but maybe it comes from wheat. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ne'emar Aviv b'Mitzrayim, v'Ne'emar Aviv. Suppose we've had this Gemara before. So Rabbi says like this. It says Aviv, the word Aviv in Mitzrayim. So we'll say the context over there is Va'pishta v'Sa'ora Nukasa, Ki Sa'ora Aviv va'pishta give all. So we'll say, remember again, this is by the Makkah of Barat, speaking about all the different crops that were destroyed. So it says Aviv by Pesach, and it says Aviv Mitzrayim v'Nemar Aviv L'Doros. Ma Aviv ha'omer b'Mitzrayim So'orim. Rabbi said, just like when the Torah describes the crops which were wiped out during the Aviv in Mitzrayim, the Torah refers to grains, amongst them again So'ora, barley, right? Barley. Af Aviv ha'omer L'Doros. So we'll say, just like Aviv by Mitzrayim is referring to barley, so to Aviv by Minchas Bikurim is also what? Referring to barley. So we'll say it's interesting that through this Gzeir Shava, we begin to see what we see, that Halacha L'maisa, the Karban HaOmer is actually brought of barley. Rabbi Kiva says, Matzinu, Rabbi Kiva has a different drasha. He says, Matzinu Yachid Shemevi Chavasa Menachitin, Umevi Chavasa Menasor. And we'll say, we see that on an individual level, an individual could bring an obligatory offering from grain, from wheat, and an obligatory offering from barley. Right? They will say, so again, he brings an obligatory offering from wheat, which is, Rashi says, the minchas chote. Certain types of sin offerings come as a mincha, and the obligatory offering from barley, they will say, is the minchas knos, by sota. So an individual could satisfy an obligatory obligation both from wheat as well as from barley. V'af tzibor, mevi chovaso, menachitin umevi chavasa min hasorin. And I will say tzibor also goes ahead and could bring its obligatory obligation from chitin and also from sorin, right? So we'll say, so the tzibor brings its obligatory offering from chitin. What's that case? That's the case ultimately again of shtei halechem, but yet again says the Gemara, imata omer min hachitin. But if you say that the Karban Omer comes from chita, not from sora, from wheat and not from barley, lo matzinu tzibor shemevi chavasa min hasorin. The Rabbi say we have no case of a tzibor bringing an obligatory offering from barley. Therefore, Rabbi say must be. We know that just as the yachid brings an obligatory offering from wheat and from barley, so the tzibor brings an obligatory offering from wheat and from barley. The wheat offering we know is shtei halechem. If you hold that Omer comes from wheat, then what it turns out that there is no obligatory offering brought by the tzibor from barley. Davar acher, another possibility is imata omer ba min hachitin. If you hold that the omer comes from wheat and not from barley, if that's the case, ein shtei halechem bikurim. We'll say if that's the case, then it turns out that what? That the shtei halechem is not the first. Remember, the shtei halechem is supposed to be the first offering from the new year's wheat. If you hold that omer comes from wheat and not from barley, then it turns out that bikurim is in fact, that shtei halechem is not bikurim. To which the Gemara says, tiyufta. Einachinami, this would be an effective refutation. So we'll say, so what's interesting about this is as follows. What's interesting, if you look at Rashi says over here, Alma, it's towards the end of Rashi Kisveyat. Alma, the time of the shtei halechem is bikurim. So we'll say, what you see from this Gemara is as follows. That halacha lemaisa, the way we know that shtei halechem has to be wheat, and or really more effectively, that the omer has to be barley, is based on the fact that the shtei halechem has to be bikurim. The Torah identifies shtei halechem as bikurim, the first. In order for the shtei halechem to be bikurim, we know shtei halechem is brought from wheat. By definition, omer cannot be brought from wheat. Otherwise, the shtei halechem is not the first. The omer is the first. Elamite must be that the omer is brought from barley. So Rashi points out over here, Alma, the time of the shtei halechem is shum bikurim. Now that we're seeing that the reason why shtei halechem ultimately again is brought from wheat is because it's called bikurim. So the Gemara says, the bikurim ba'ina, hu adin la omer dak siv beinami bikurim. We'll say ultimately again, by omer, it Torah also uses a lashon of bikurim. V'hainu k'Rebbe Lazar, v'kasha l'Rabbi Yochanan. And I will say ultimately again, this would go ahead and fit better with Rebbe Lazar, and it wouldn't fit as well with Rabbi Yochanan. So both say, so remember again, the idea going back, we had two different drashas to learn out how you know you need fresh barley. Rabbi Yochanan said Carmel Takriv, and Rabbi Lazar said Reishes Ketzircha. So all the Gemara is just pointing out is that the drashas that we just went ahead and espoused fit better with Rabbi Lazar than they do with Rabbi Yochanan. Good. Rabbi say, but here's the good news. The good news is these are only machloksim in the nature of the drashos. The bottom line is what everyone agrees on. Even though, remember again, we had a three machlokes about the nature of produce used for the omer and for the shtei halechem. Does it have to be Eretz Yisrael produce? Does it have to be chadash? Could it also be yashan? So that we saw three machlokes. One Mishnah, two braisos. Here's the part that everyone agrees with, which is what? The omer must be barley and must be from this year's barley, right? And however you're darshaning that, that's the bottom line conclusion. It must be fresh barley from this year, and the shtei halechem must be wheat and must be the first wheat offering of the year from the brand new wheat crop. Beautiful. So the Gemara goes weiter. Tanan hasam. Ein mevi'in bikurim chutz mishivas hamina. What's another interesting halacha? You can't bring bikurim, or you should say you can only bring bikurim from Shivas Haminim. So we'll say this is the halacha. You don't go, bikurim, first fruits are only brought from the items which are indigenous to Eretz Yisrael. The 7 species of Eretz Yisrael. Look at Rashi. Last Rashi on the page and the kisayat on the bottom. Shivas Haminim ha'amurim pasuk Eretz Chitos oragef antena udvash dikra hanu dvash detmarim. And I will say, of course, when the Torah speaks about honey of Eretz Yisrael, it's not talking about bee honey, but rather again it's talking about date honey. Says the Gemara Amud Beis. So the Gemara says, Velo, one word on Amud Aleph. So the Gemara says, Velo mitmarim shebaharim, velo mipeiros shebe'amakim. Supposed to listen to this. But you do not bring bikurim from the dates that grow on the mountains, nor do you grow it from the fruit which grows in the plains or in the valleys. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Mitvarim shebaharim. So Rashi says over here, if you look actually in Rashi Kisveyad, shebaharim mitukim, miperu sheba'amakim tevua. Supposed to say, interestingly enough, so apparently the dates which grow on mountains are too sweet. So apparently, again, when it comes to fruit, a certain amount of sweetness is good. Too much sweetness renders it inedible. So the halacha the Gemara is saying over here is that you have to bring bikurim from all first fruit, but normative fruit. But the dates which grow on the mountains, which are too sweet, so halacha l'maisa, again, you don't go ahead and bring them as bikurim. What's the peiros sheba amakim, the fruit that grows in the valleys? So Rashi says over here, that's tevua. Now this is actually an important halacha. Even though what? Even though, of course, grain is part of the shivas haminim, pasuk, we do not bring bikurim from grain. Bikurim is a din in the fruits of the pasuk, ultimately, again, not the grains of the pasuk. Amar Ula. So Ula says, Im hevi, if you ended up bringing from these items, low kiddush. So we'll say, Ula says, now what this sounds like is, if you ended up bringing either dates from the mountains, or you ended up bringing grain, although we'll define this in just a moment, if you ended up bringing it, halacha l'maisa, again, it's low kiddush. It doesn't even have the status of bikurim. Yosef Rabbi v'ka'amar le'lahashmaita. So Rabbi was sitting, and he was saying over this particular ruling. Eisvei Rabbi Acha bar Abba l'Rabba. So Rabbi Acha bar Abba asked the kasha on Rabba, carbon reishis. So we'll say the pasuk when referring to shtei halechem calls it the carbon reishis. It has to be the first, the carbon that is the reishis. Shetehei reishis l'chol hamenachos. So we'll say, what do we learn from here? That the shtei halechem has to be the reishis, has to be the first of all menachos. I'm on page Dalet Days 84b, 5 lines down from the top. Shetei reishis l'chol hamenachos has to be the first of all menachos. So the Gemara says, V'chein hu omer, V'akrivchem mincha chadasha la'Hashem b'shavuosechem. The pasuk also referring to Shtei Halechem says, when you offer up the mincha chadasha to Hashem b'shavuosechem, during your weeks, during your shavuos, ein li ela chadasha shel chitim. So I only know that the Shtei Halechem has to be of the brand new wheat. Chadasha shel se'orim minayin. How do I know that Omer has to be offered up from the new barley crop? Where do I know that from? Talmud Lomar, Chadasha, Chadasha. So we'll say, so the Gemara says, over here, make a Gzir Shava of Chadasha, Chadasha. If you don't need this extra Chadasha to teach you that the wheat offering, i.e. the Shtei Halechem, has to come from the new crop, then what? Then Tnehu Inyan Lachadasha Shal Sa'orim. Then apply it ultimately again to the offering which comes from barley, i.e. the Omer, to teach me that Omer must come from the brand new barley crop as well. Uminayin Shetehei Kodemes Lebikurim. This is actually interesting halacha. How do you know that the Shtei Halechem must be brought before Bikurim? Remember, the season for Bikurim begins with Shavuos. Shavuos is the beginning of the Bikurim season. So halacha l'maisa, what the Gemara is suggesting is that the Bikurim, however, can only be brought after the Shtei Halechem is offered. You have to offer up the Shtei Halechem. So in other words, you can't, Beis Hamikdash apparently, we'll delve into this further, does not accept Bikurim offerings until after the Shtei Halechem is brought. So from where do you know that? Because the pasuk says, "V'chaga Shavuos ta'aseh lecha bikurei ketzir chitin." Because the pasuk says ultimately again that Chag Shavuos you shall go ahead and make for yourself bikurei ketzir chitim. So you see over here that what? You see over here that halacha l'maisa, the juxtaposition ultimately again to the bikurim and the Shtei Halechem tells the Shtei Halechem has to come before the bikurim. Ve'emi ela bikurei ketzir chitim. Ketzir sa'orim minayin. So it's like, again, I only know that halacha l'maisa, the Shtei Halechem, has to be the bikurei ketzir chitim. How do I know that you also require the bikurei, that ketzir sa'orim minayin? Talmud lomar, v'chag hakatzir bikurei ma'asecha asher tizra basada. Therefore, we'll say ultimately, again, the pasuk teaches me, here, if you take a look, Okay, actually not yet. We'll come back to it. So the Gemara says, "Ve'im li'ela bikurim kitzir chitim." I only know ultimately again that the shtei lechem has to ultimately again be the first of the new grain. Kitzir se'orim minayin. Tamalomar chaga katzir bikurim masecha shetizra basada. Ve'im li'ela shetizra. I only know Bosai that this halacha that ultimately again the shtei halechem has to come before bikurim. I only know that it applies to fruit which was planted. However, alu me'elehen. Ultimately, again, we'll say what happens if fruit grew by itself. What happens if fruit grew by itself? Maybe halacha l'maisa, again, you should be able to bring that as bikurim even without the shtei halechem. Talmud lomar basada. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk says basada. The shtei halechem is necessary to permit the bringing of bikurim for any types of fruit which grow in the field, whether you planted them or whether they grew on their own. Ve'eni el basada. Minayim the rabbos shebegag. B'sheba churva, b'sheba otzitz, b'sheba svina. But say ultimately again, how do I know that this halacha applies to what? To fruit which grew on. Well, they're going to define these cases on the rooftop. In the churva means in a ruin. Sheba otzitz in a flower pot, usually an unperforated flower pot. B'sheba svina on a boat. But say, how do I know that halacha l'maisa in all of these? Just understand what we're saying over here. What we're saying over here is we just established a principle, which is you cannot bring bikurim until after the shtei halechem is offered. What we're now doing is dissecting the pasuk and trying to understand which types of bikurim does this apply to. So you see what we're doing is we're broadening and broadening and broadening the case. At first I only learned that halacha l'maisa asher tizra. It only applies to fruit which I planted. What about fruit which I went ahead and didn't plant, but it grew on its own? How do I know that even for that fruit, halacha l'maisa, you can't bring it? You can't bring it as bikurim until after you bring the shtei halechem basada. Now we're further expanding it. How do I know that this halacha even applies to fruit which was planted not in the earth, but rather again on the rooftop, in a ruin, in an unperforated flower pot, and on a boat? How do I know that if I have fruit from any of those places, that I may not bring them as bikurim until when? Until I go ahead and offer up the shtei halechem. Talmud lomar, bikurei kol asher ba'artzam. So this is actually interesting. So the pasuk says, the pasuk makes an all-expansive, all-encompassing statement. Bikurim, what do these halachos of bikurim apply to? Which specific halacha? That you can't bring bikurim until after you bring the shtei halechem. What does it apply to? Kol asher ba'artzam. Whatever grows in your land, wherever it grows from. And I will say, from where do I know that halacha l'maisa? If you look at Rashi, says over here, Rashi kisvei yad, it's about 2, 4, 6, 8 lines down. L'nesachim u'lepeiros ha'ilon shelo yavi nesachim yayin min ha'chadash ubikurei peiros ha'ilon kodem l'shtei halechem. I will say, how do I know that I should not go ahead and bring wine libations, or ultimately again any type of bikurim before the shtei halechem? Or as we'll say, that I can't bring wine libations from the new crop of grapes. I can't bring wine libations from the chadash. Ultimately again until the shtei halechem is offered. Ne'emar kan bikurim ma'asecha v'ne'emar lahalon ba'ospecha es ma'asecha min hasada. Both say gzir shava. Ma lahalon nesachim upeiros ha'ilon. Just like over there, it's referring to nesachim upeiros ha'ilon. Afkan nesachim upeiros ha'ilon. So to Rabbi by the pasuk of shtei halechem, it's referring to nesachim upeiros ha'ilon. Also to teach me that what? That halacha l'maisa, I cannot offer up nesachim or bikurim from the new crop until when? Until ultimately again the shtei halechem is offered. So the Gemara says, Katani miha. So we'll say, let's go back and focus. So for our purposes, what comes out over here is a very important halacha, which is that we do not go ahead and bring any bikurim until after the shtei halechem is offered. Now we'll say what this also sounds like from the Gemara over here, that it is the offering of the shtei halechem that allows for the new crop to be used for sacrificial purposes. If you remember again, we drew this distinction earlier. The Karban HaOmer does what? It permits the consumption by regular consumption, normative, non-sacred consumption from the new crop. So the Omer permits chadash for consumption. It is the shtei halechem that permits chadash for sacrificial temple use. So what's interesting to note is during that period of time between the offering of the Omer and the offering of the shtei halechem, everyone is eating chadash But interestingly enough, for Beis Hamikdash purposes, what are they using? They're using yashan for anything sacrificial or temple related, which is quite interesting. Then once the Shtei Alechem is brought, that allows Bikurim to be brought, and then once Bikurim is brought, it's not a prerequisite, but we allow Bikurim to be brought, and ultimately, again, then you can begin using the new crop, the Chadash, which now becomes Yashan, but the Chadash ultimately for temple sacrificial use as well. Pretty amazing. Katani Miha. So we'll say, the Gemara makes an interesting observation based on what we just said before. Katani Miha, Shebegag, Shebechorva, Shebe'atzah, Shebesina. And I will say, now if you remember again, in our multiple drashos before, so the Gemara went ahead and added in that, by the way, you bring Bikurim from crops that grow on the rooftop, in the ruin, in the flower pot, and on the boat. So if you look at Rashi again, it's like right in the middle of Rashi Kisvei Yad there. It's the Divrei HaMaschel, Afkan Nechasim Operos, Ilan Katani Miha Sheba Atzis Shebesvina, Lo Yeviem Kodem Shtei Alechem, El La'achar Shtei Alechem Yabi, the Kosh King Tamarim Sheba Harem, Uperos Sheba Amakim Utuyuf Ula. So we'll say, remember how we got into this whole thing over here? We got into this whole thing because the Brisa began by teaching me that I do not bring Bikurim from what? From the dates which grow on the mountaintops. Why not? Why not? So really the simple answer is they're considered to be inferior. They're inferior. In other words, they're over sweetness. Too sweet. Right? They're too sweetness. No, I like over sweetness, right? Right? Their over sweetness is what? It will say renders it inferior produce. Therefore you don't bring it. What the Gemara is asking over is as follows. I don't understand. You're telling me that I bring Bikurim from stuff that grows in a flower pot, or something that's grown on my roof, or on a boat, which are both say, not necessarily from a quality perspective, but at least from a crop perspective, is certainly inferior. Right? It's not even growing in the earth itself. It's growing in earth, but not in the earth, and yet you're telling me that you go in and you bring Bikurim from that. Certainly I should bring Bikurim from the dates that grow on the mountaintops as well. To which the Gemara says, Seifa as-so'an lemenachos. We'll say, look at Rashi again, Seifa. Diktani minai the rabbos shebegag v'shebechorva v'nachos kamayri. We'll say, to which the Gemara answers, no, you misunderstood. Those cases of the crops growing on the rooftop, in the ruin, in the flower pot, on the boat, that's not talking about Bikurim. That's actually referring to Menachos. And what is it saying? The V'hachi kamar, minai shlo yaviu mehen mincha kodem l'shtei alechem, tamlor Bikuri kol asher ba'artzam, listen to this. So the Gemara says, no, you're misunderstanding. What the Gemara was saying over there is, you should not use those crops for menachos until after you bring the shtei halechem. But the Gemara was not suggesting that what? That those crops are subject to the obligation of bikurim. Maske for Ravad bar Ava, if that's the case, hainu dichsiv kol tar b'veisecha yochal also. So we'll say, if that's the case, then I understand ultimately again why the pasuk says that what? Kol tar b'veisecha yochal also. So we'll say this is the end. Bikurei kol asher ba'artzam asher yaviu la'Hashem l'cha l'cha yihiyah kol tar b'veisecha yochlenu. So we'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Hainu dichsiv b'haikra di bikurei kol asher ba'artzam kol tar afilu nashim. Di b'menachos mishtaikra l'zir chikron. So we'll say, if the pasuk is talking about bikurim, then I understand ultimately again kol tar b'veisecha yochal also v'i menachos. But if you're going to tell me now that the end of the rice is referring to menachos, Rabbosai, the zichrei kunatim achlon, women don't eat menachos. Only male kohanim eat the menachos. Therefore, again, we have to say Amar Mishash. We'll say first wide line trei kroi ksivi. We'll say there are two different psukim. On one end it says l'cha yiyeh uksiv kol tar b'veisecha yochaloso. We'll say one pasuk said it shall be for you. Another pasuk says anyone who's tar in your home shall eat it. How do we understand it? Ha ketzad. Kan be bikurim, kan be menachos. Ultimately, we'll say the pasuk that says kol tar b'veisecha, that's referring to bikurim. The kohanim get to bikurim. Who's supposed to say permitted to eat to bikurim? Anyone ultimately again who is part of the kohanic household who is ritually permitted to eat the bikurim. What about the pasuk that says l'cha yihiyah? It's only for you. That's a reference to the mincha, which can only be consumed by male kohanim. Rav Ashi says no. Kulei b'menachos. The entire price that we quoted before is about menachos. The seifa dikra asoin lelachmei toda. And Rabbi said the end of the pasuk is actually coming to refer to what? Coming to refer to lachmei toda and beplukta, and ultimately again it's coming to highlight a machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Look at Rashi. Rabbi say beplukta. It's about 6 lines up from the bottom of Rashi. Beplukta Ula v'Ravacha barhuna pligi nami Rabbi Yochanan b'Reish Lakish b'tmarim shebaharim u'perish sheva'amakim. So we'll say, in reality, what we mentioned before is a machlokes regarding, again, the dates that are too sweet, regarding the wheat, right? It's a machlokes. What's the machlokes? Rabbi Yochanan Amar in heavy lo kadosh. Rabbi Yochanan holds that when it comes to inferior produce or grain, if you went ahead and you brought it as bikurim, what's the halacha? It is not kadosh. Your designation does not work. These items are excluded from the parsha of bikurim. V'reish Lakish Shamar im heavy kadosh. V'nasa kikachosh bekachim. Reish Lakish says, listen, you shouldn't bring it as bikurim. We don't really want the dates from the mountaintop. We don't really want the grain. But if you went ahead and you brought it, nevertheless, what's the halacha? The halacha is it's good. Why? So I'll say Reish Lakish is something very interesting. Let's focus on the dates for just a bit. Reish Lakish says, when you bring an animal, what's the halacha when you bring a sacrificial animal? What's the halacha? What kind of animal should you bring? The best. Right, the best that you have. What happens if you bring a little tiny, scrawny, nebuchal animal? Right, so what's the halacha, Rabbi say? It works. It works. You know, it's a carbon. Again, not ideal. As long as it doesn't have a mum, right? It's fine. So Reish Lakish says, look, should you be bringing the dates from the mountaintop as bikurim? No. But if you did, it's no worse than bringing the nebuchal sheep that you have in your flock that no one picks. It's always the last one to get picked for the basketball team. Right? It's always the last one. So nevertheless, I went ahead and I brought it. It works. It works. So same thing with the dates, ultimately, again, on the mountaintop. So Bishlam Reish Lakish kedamar taima. So I'll say, I understand Reish Lakish's svara. Reish Lakish's svara about the date is, it's not ideal, but if you mekadesh it as bikurim, the designation works. Rabbi Yochanan my taima. But Rabbi Yochanan, what's your logic? Amar, also the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan chaz, listen to this verse, it's amazing. Rabbi Yochanan my taima. So Rabbi Elazar says as follows. So Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan chazoi bechalam. So we'll say, Rabbi Elazar says, last night, I saw Rabbi Yochanan in a dream. I say, halavai, we should be zocheh to have such dreams. I saw Rabbi Yochanan in a dream, milsa ma'al yosamina. We'll say, the Gemara Mesachas Brachas says this, that if you see a great Torah sage in your dream, that is a siman that you're going to say something really smart the next day. And I will say there's a very important lesson to be learned from here, which is, if you did not see a Torah sage in your dream, chances are you should minimize what you have to say the following day. Let's say the converse is true as well. So Rabbi Elazar says something amazing. So Rabbi Elazar says, I saw Rabbi Yochanan in a dream. So milsa ma'al yosamina, and I know I'm going to say something of incredible significance. Amakra, the pasuk says, Meireshis, you bring from the first, V'lo kosh. This is actually an amazing observation. He's saying over here that halacha l'maisa, the pasuk by Bikurim says meresh. So we'll say meresh by definition means what? From. From means what? Some and not all. Otherwise, it would have just said rashis. So by definition, the Torah is already setting me up that there could be certain types of fruit, even from amongst the 7 species, which are really not fit, ultimately, again, for bikurim. Meresh v'lo koreshes. Me'artzecha v'lo kol artzecha. You should bring the fruits from your land, but not from everywhere. Not from everywhere. Reish Lakish, hi artzecha and my aver. What does Reish Lakish do with this artzecha? Mi barle v'chidisanya. Rabbi Gamliel bar Rabbi Omer. Ne'emar kan eretz v'ne'emar lahalon eretz. Ma lahalon shevach eretz. Af kan shevach eretz. So Reish Lakish uses eretz to teach you that what? That it's to come from the best of the land. It's come from the best of the land. Everyone will agree that ultimately, you're going to both say, well, I should say differently. Just like Shevach Eretz means that Bikurim comes from those things which Eretz Yisrael is blessed with. The Shivas Haminim, there are plenty of things which grow in Eretz Yisrael. The Shivas Haminim represent the fruit that are the Shevach Eretz Yisrael. The Idach, Eretz me'eretz. He learns Rabbi say from that same drasha, from the fact that it says Eretz, but it could have said, it says Eretz, but it could have, it says me'eretz. It could have said Eretz. Ve'idach, Eretz me'eretz, lo mashmalei. And ultimately, again, the other one holds, will say that we don't darshan Eretz me'eretz. So we'll say, so bottom line, halacha l'maisa, we end up with the machlokes of Yochanan and Reish Lakish, about whether or not the Tvarim Shebaharim, if you went ahead and you brought them as Bikurim, would they be consecrated as Bikurim or not? So we have ultimately, again, one opinion that says, Halacha L'maisa, no. That even if you brought them, Reish Lakish says, even if you brought them, they're not going to be good. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yochanan says, even if you brought them, they're not going to be good. And Reish Lakish says, even if you bring them, they're Kaddish. Why? Because it's no worse than bringing the scrawny animal. What's Rabbi Yochanan's logic? So Rabbi Yochanan's logic ultimately is from Meireshis. Meireshis teaches me that halacha lemaisa, you bring from some of the crop, but not all of the crop. We'll say the Rambam Paskins like Rabbi Yochanan, namely that halacha lemaisa, we do not bring tamarim shebaharim, this type of inferior dates as bikurim. So we'll stop over here for today. I'm going to share with you a short idea from the parsha. So we'll say there's a beautiful insight. This is my bar mitzvah parsha this week. So I've tried to always learn the Rebbe started the Kedushas Levi on the parsha. And here the Rebbe just has so many incredible pieces and insights as we have seen over the course of this week. That's why I tried to do a little bit more Kedushas Levi this week. So the Rebbe says something about which is amazing. We know that in this week's parsha, so the Eliezer goes to find the wife for Yitzchak Avinu. And he devises a fascinating test, right? He goes to the well. He says, I'm going to wait by the well. I'm going to ask a girl for a drink. And if she gives me a drink and offers to go ahead and water my camels, ultimately, again, this is the girl. This is the girl for Yitzchak Avinu. So I'll say, so again, there's much to be said about the nature of this test, why she has to water the entire flock. But point over here is on a very basic level, Eliezer is looking for a balas chesed, right? The paradigmatic trait of the Abrahamic family is chesed, and therefore Sarah Imenu is gone. There's a void. The next of the most has to be a balas chesed as well. So therefore, again, Eliezer devises a simple test of chesed. So what happens? So the pasuk says he comes to see Rivka, and he sees Rivka's drawing water from the well. Vayaretz ha'aved likrasa. So ultimately, again, the Eved goes and he runs to meet her. So Rashi says over here, why? What was it about Rivka that caused Eliezer to run? It doesn't just say he walked over to her. He ran to greet her. Rashi says, Rashi, sha'alu hamayim likrasa. Because Eliezer saw something dramatically amazing. That as this young girl is drawing water, what happens? She doesn't have to draw it. Rather, what happens? The water came into her bucket. So obviously, he says to himself, there's something with this girl. Obviously, she's something special. He runs to go ahead and see her. So listen to this. The Rebbe quotes the Ramban. And the Ramban says over here, he says, so actually skip a little bit. I'm sorry, not the Ramban. He says, Efes, dilefi divarenu tikshihi gufa. Lama achrekin bahak shosas hagimalim lo alu hamayim likrasa. So what the Rebbe says is as follows. So we'll say, the pasuk says, Vatishav l'chol hagmalim. A little bit later, when Rivka says, okay, I'll give to your camels to drink also. So the pasuk says that she drew the water. Initially, it doesn't say that she drew the water. So from here, Rashi, the Medrash, understand that initially she didn't draw the water came into her bucket. Yet, interestingly enough, when she goes to give water to the camels and to Eliezer, what happens? She draws the water. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. Why is it that when she was getting water for herself, the water rose from the well and came into her bucket? Yet, when she wants to give water to Eliezer and the camels, the pasuk sounds like what? That she mamish had to draw the water. We'll say, it's an incredible kasha. Incredible kasha. I have to say, I'm embarrassed that I never saw this in the pasuk before. When she's getting the water for herself, she doesn't have to draw any water. But yet when she's going in and getting the pasuk, when she's getting the water for Eliezer, for the camels, she has to draw the water. Why? Listen to what the Rebbe says. She says something so amazing. So the Rebbe says as follows. I'm going to tell you this outside. I'll tell you it inside. He says, "V'lahachi v'pam rishona dibedaita elishav hamayim litzarka glau kain alu hamayim likrasa shelo tatriach atzma." So it says something amazing. When she was drawing the water initially, who was she drawing it for? Herself. And therefore, again, a miracle occurred. Kevan shekavanas hayelishav litzarka ma she'ein kain b'pam shniya shekavanasa haya ligmal chesed lahashkos hagmalim she'Eliezer eved Avram lo alu hamayim likrasa. The second time she drew the water, she wasn't drawing the water for herself, she was drawing the water to do a mitzvah. The water didn't come into her bucket. Shekisha adam ose mitzvah yoser nechshav la'asos pe'ula. Because when you're doing a mitzvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to exert yourself. So we'll say, says there is something amazing. When it comes to your gashmius, when it comes to your own needs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is more than happy to go ahead and perform miracles. So Rivka's going ahead and drawing water for her own needs. Beautiful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will cause the water to come into her bucket. When it comes to your ruchnius, says the Rebbe, there are no miracles. When it comes to your ruchnius, if you want something to happen, you better be ready to bend your shoulder, bend your back, and keep putting the bucket into the well. Keep drawing bucket after bucket after bucket. So when Rivka Imenu draws the water for herself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, I don't want you to be matriach yourself. Let me take care of your gashmias. Let me take care of your physical needs. Now you want to do chesed for someone else? If you want to do a mitzvah, if you want to be a balas chesed, if you want to grow, you have to be ready to exert yourself. You have to be ready to schwitz. You have to be ready to work. And here says the Rebbe, becomes the incredible paradigm for life. It's an overwhelming insight. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles for us all of the time. We say in Modim, like the Stipler pointed out, in Modim we say, Va'al nisecha shebachol yom imanu. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the miracles that He performed with us, that are with us each and every day. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles for us every day. We see it, right? If a person goes to work, a person has a career, there are things that work out, there are things that don't work out. The things that work out, sometimes we never thought would work out. The things that I thought would work out, that were a sure thing, didn't work out. So when it comes to our gashmios, when it comes to our own personal needs, we are the beneficiaries of divine miracles each and every day, Rabbi. When it comes to our personal growth, when it comes to our avodas Hashem, there are no miracles. So because there are no miracles, don't expect it to be easy. I will say, sometimes we expect our ruchnius to be easy. Why? Because I assume, hey God, right? Give me a break over here. I'm trying to serve you. At what point in time does it become easier to wake up in the morning? At what point in time does it become easier to be a Baal Tzedakah? At what point in time does it become easier to become selfless? At what point in time does it become easier to become self-transcendent and non-egocentric? And the answer is never. Never, because that's the point. My parnasa may become easier because that's for me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles for me. My gashmius may become easier because that's for me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles for me. He loves me, wants to do miracles for me. But when it comes to my personal growth, when it comes to my avodas Hashem, when it comes to me becoming a Baal Chesed, I will say the avoda is, it never becomes easier. Rivka Imenu becomes sorer and sorer after every single time she has to dip that bucket into the well. Do you know what it means to water a flock of camels? No, but it's clearly a lot of water. So we think to ourselves, oh, such a tzaddikas, Mama, she doesn't even feel the bucket going in, the bucket coming out. She doesn't even feel anything. Oh, she felt it. She felt it. I guarantee you that night she went to bed with a sore back, with sore shoulders, and she wakes up the next morning probably feeling the effects of watering an entire flock of camels. But that's what it means to be an Eved Hashem. When it comes to our Ruchnius, Rabbosai, it's all about the exertion. There are no miracles when it comes to your Ruchnius. There's only effort. There are plenty of miracles when it comes to our Gashmius. When it comes to our Ruchnius, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to bend our back, draw the water from the well, and work hard. So we see the incredible miracle when Rivka Imenu is drawing the water for herself, but when she becomes a Baalas Chesed, you want to become great in life, don't wait for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to perform miracles for you. Bend your back, draw the water from the well, exert yourself, put in the necessary amount of koach, and Emir Hashem will see the results.